A young documentarian teenager and her brother stay with their grandparents while their mother is on vacation, but they soon find that something is very wrong with them. After the disaster that was The Last Airbender, M. Night Shyamalan returned to the horror genre with this uneasy story of child endangerment, familial trauma, and personal insecurity. I saw this in a movie theater filled to the brim with teenagers, all of whom were laughing hysterically. As far as I could tell, I was the only person who was genuinely invested. I was primarily raised by my grandparents, and thus I have always firmly been aware of their mortality. I have always been afraid of losing them too soon or facing the dangers of Alzheimer's. So when Rebecca and Tyler see how mentally disturbed their grandparents are, you can only ask, what do you do when your caretakers are no longer reliable and become a danger to themselves, and more importantly, when they become a danger to you? The movie, of course, has twists and turns, but the concept alone is what scares me, and one of its highlights is when Rebecca tries to interview her grandmother and learn more about her.
Music, but I need some everyday footage of our grandparents, so I've decided to spend Thursday afternoon following them around. You hear that? She's laughing and she's watching TV. Maybe Mom and I will watch the same shows. Nana? Nana, you okay?
Good afternoon.
I heard you laughing.
I have the deep darkies.
Nana? Nana! Nana, stop! Nana, stop! Nana, what's happening?
You have to laugh to keep the deep darkies in a cave.
People in the audience found this funny, but the idea of any family member losing their mind with age is terrifying to me. In this sequel to Spielberg's horror classic, Sheriff Brody and his sons are once again terrorized by a bloodthirsty shark. Why? Who knows? But believe it or not, this unnecessary sequel remains an entertaining and suspenseful film, with our main cast consisting primarily of teenagers on a boating outing being picked off one by one. This holds its place as an aquatic slasher before the 80s even started. The deaths are tragic, the effects are still convincing if not a bit dated, and it has moments that may not rival the original, but still stay in your mind. The tagline is still one of the most memorable and parodied in pop culture.
Just when you thought it was safe to go back in the water.
Roy Scheider does a great job playing a PTSD Sheriff Brody, and the traumatized girl, cowering in fear after witnessing her boyfriend getting eaten, is chilling. I remember even being scared of the swimming pool in this movie, thinking that a shark would pop out at any moment. But the scene that stays with me is when two friends go water skiing and meet a grisly end. A sorority house is stalked by a serial killer during Christmas time. As simple as that one sentence sounds, Black Christmas continues to stand the test of time by being a well-directed and taut thriller with a minimal score that consists of abrasive piano strings and a warm yet bleak color palette that emphasizes the warmth of the holiday and the ever-present danger to the characters. The first act is a little rough to get through, and the only likable characters are mostly John Saxon and Olivia Hussey, but as the killings continue along with the obscene phone calls, you begin to feel the paranoia and fear settling in both for the characters and for yourself, especially when you realize the killer that they're dealing with isn't so much a villain with a motive, but an unseen assailant who is purely insane. The scene that stays with me is when the police finally trace the source of the calls. The editing creates so much urgency as we see the police walking through endless towers of phone wiring, but always losing the trace once the killer hangs up, until they finally trace the call and try to inform Olivia Hussey without scaring her.
Hello?
Who is this?
It's Jess.
Miss Bradford, this is Sergeant Nash. Are you the only one in the house?
No. Phil and Barbara upstairs asleep. Why?
All right. Now, I want you to do exactly what I tell you without asking any questions, okay? No questions. Now, just put the phone back on the hook, walk to the front door, and leave the house.
What's wrong?
Please, Miss Bradford, please just do as I tell you.
Okay. I'll get Phil and Barbara.
No, don't do that, Jess. Jess, the caller is in the house. The calls are coming from the house. Jess! Jess, get up! And don't go up there. Don't go upstairs, Jess. Miss Bradford! Miss Bradford! Miss Bradford? Miss Bradford?
Phil! Bob! Oh, please answer me! Phil! Bob! Please answer me! Please answer me!
Based on the true events of South Korea's first serial killer in 1986, Memories of Murder follows the desperate detectives tasked with the responsibility of catching the killer. I love South Korean cinema. I love Bong Joon-ho's movies, and I love Song Kang-ho. And this is one of their best works ever put to film. This masterpiece thriller captures the insanity of an out-of-their-league police force that relies on wit and intuition versus forensics because they've never had to deal with this kind of scenario. Every day that passes by is another day with no answers, no leads, and a ticking clock for the next unsuspecting woman to be murdered under the cover of rainfall. From start to finish, you are side by side with the detectives, wanting to catch the killer until ultimately, as history dictated, they never do. And the moment that forever stays in my mind is the ending, where Song Kang-ho, now retired from the police 5 years later, visits the first location of the murders.
그 안에 뭐 있어요? 응? 거기에 뭐 있냐고요?
아니,
근데 왜 봐요?
그냥 좀 봤다.
되게 신기하다.
뭐가?
얼마 전에도 어떤 아저씨가 여기서 이 구멍 속 들여다보고 있었는데. 그 아저씨한테도 물어봤었거든요. 왜 여기 들여다보냐고.
그랬더니
뭐래더라? 맞아. 옛날에 여기서 자기가 했던 일이 생각나서 진짜 오랜만에 한번 와봤다. 그랬는데?
그 아저씨 얼굴 봤어? 어떻게 생겼어?
그냥 뻔한 얼굴인데?
어떻게?
그냥 평범해요.
This is one of my favorite final shots of any movie. The killer is still out there, and he looks like an ordinary human being. Song Kang-ho's expression not only looks directly at the viewer, but potentially the killer in real life, if they're watching. A dangerous mental patient escapes from his hospital to return to his hometown, where he murdered his older sister and has now chosen to stalk 3 teenage girls on Halloween night. It goes without saying that the original Halloween had a major impact on the horror genre, launching John Carpenter and Jamie Lee Curtis's careers, creating a slew of copycats, and changing the game for horror themes. And although I revisit it every year, it does begin to show its humble independent roots compared to the sequels, most notably 4 and 5 that I prefer. The pacing is slow, the characters are a little obnoxious, and Michael Myers knowing how to drive a car just feels weird. Yes, I know he does this in part 4 and 5, shut up. But if you introduce this film to a young audience for the first time without knowing anything about it, I think it's still guaranteed to keep them up at night. As much as Michael Myers has gone from being the shape to a sad shadow, the original film firmly establishes him as an iconic, mysterious, and menacing presence, a genuine stranger danger boogeyman that feels nothing and will kill you without a second thought. And the scene that stuck with me and an entire generation was the ending.
was the boogeyman.
As a matter of fact, it was.
And they never made another one ever again. Based on seemingly true events, a teenage girl named Veronica is haunted by evil spirits after her and her friends play with a Ouija board. Director of the Rex series Paco Plaza shows a little more restraint with this familiar story of hauntings and possessions, but one that keeps you invested because of the relationship between Veronica and her family. She feels like a genuine teenage girl struggling to keep her family together, and part of her struggle is how she tried to contact her deceased father, but now her naive actions have led to the endangerment of her own siblings, and she's the only person that can stop it. The direction and pacing are what makes the movie Scare so effective, and for me, the best comes when Veronica decides to go to sleep. The tension builds not only because the viewer knows something is in the house, but it's the fact that Veronica won't even be able to hear it with her music. That is until she wakes up.
¿Qué hacéis aquí? ¿Papá?
A self-deprecating and mentally disturbed ventriloquist played brilliantly by Anthony Hopkins gets his big break when he books a show in his old hometown, but begins to lose sight of his goal when he reunites with an old flame. The trailer alone for this movie was enough to terrify a generation of kids, which is further explored in the short documentary Primal Screen.
Abracadabra, I sit on his knee. Presto, change show, and now here's me. Hocus pocus, we take her to bed. Magic is free. We're dead.
Josephine Levine presents Magic, a terrifying love story starring Anthony Hopkins, Anne Margaret, and Burgess Meredith. Rated R.
And the movie itself is equally terrifying. Hopkins actually learned how to throw his own voice for the role, and all of Fatz's lines are performed by him, creating a convincing dual role for two characters that are equally scary. Whether it's Fatz's encouraging Corky to kill, or how he manipulates his love interest with his talents and lies, it's a sad descent into madness for a charming and talented character that you both hate and sympathize with. The scene that stays with me is when Corky's manager is worried for his mental health and asks him to separate himself from the dummy.
I'm going to ask you to do something. It's a little something anybody ought to be able to do. Now, if you can do it, fine. We'll forget this whole thing. But if you can't, we'll think about getting you to see somebody fast. Is it a deal?
Name it.
Make Fat shut up for 5 minutes.
$5 minutes? I can make him shut up for 5 years.
Wonderful.
I feel like the village idiot, if you want to know the truth. Can we talk, or is it got to be strictly semaphore? How long so far?
Here's 30 seconds.
Gosh, that's 4.5 minutes to go. Think I'll make it? Don't happen to have another of those, do you? Take 2. They're big. Do you remember when you said that, Ben?
A pro never forgets his good lion skin.
How long? No.
Coming up to a minute.
Do you think we'll laugh about this someday? Make a terrific scene if you ever decide to write your autobiography. Hey, I know what you should call it. Failing upwards, or how to succeed in show business by outliving everybody. Two minutes yet?
Minute 45.
This is very cruel of you, you know that?
I don't mean it to be.
I don't know if I'll ever be able to forgive you.
Well, that would be sad.
Time?
2.5 minutes to go.
make it.
I didn't think you could.
Hello, everybody. This is Mrs. Norman Maine. My mother thanks you, my father thanks you, my sister thanks you, and I thank you. You have nothing to fear but fear itself, nothing to give but blood, sweat, and tears, nothing to lose but your chains. Here he is, boys. Here he is, world. Here is Fat!
The terror in the scene doesn't come from fear, but from the tragedy that Corky's talent is a stone's throw away from madness. Three young adults stuck in decrepit Detroit decide to steal a large fortune hoarded by a lone blind man and find themselves trapped in his home. Atmospheric dread, heart-pounding tension, and an enemy that is simply your inability to not make a sound are what make this thriller so intense. The score emphasizes suspenseful drones mixed with the sound design of clanging metal and creaking wood to accentuate the motif of sound is the enemy. When the characters first break into the house, the camera travels throughout every room, corner, underneath beds, anything of significance that allows the viewer to become fully acquainted with the world they're inhabiting. Almost as if you have a complete layout of the house in a video game and know exactly where certain weapons and hiding spots are, even though the characters don't. It's superb direction. Even the small addition of dark marks along the walls, showing how the blind man has had to use it as an anchor when he walks in his house, is great attention to detail. There's plenty of memorable moments in this film, but the one that stays with me is when Rocky finally manages to escape from the man's house. Until...
You're worthless out here.
At the end of World War II, a protective mother keeps her children safe inside their mansion until she begins to suspect that there are intruders inside their home. It's movies like The Others and The Innocents that further convince me that the only compelling ghost stories come from Europe, Mexico, and Asia, where the spirits are used to not only instill fear of death and the unknown, but express a certain tragedy and melancholy. It's not something I'm ever able to find in American ghost stories because of how obsessed they are in scaring you as much as possible with the same tropes, whereas The Others utilizes the absence of a threat to keep you on your toes, the use of sunlight as an enemy for the children who are born with light sensitivity, and the overwhelming grandness of the location. The amount of rooms and hiding spots someone or something could occupy in a mansion, and how frantically Nicole Kidman has to lock every door behind her and present a strong, unbreakable demeanor in the face of isolation and loneliness. Even her dress is such a striking visual amidst the complacency of the mansion's white sheets and brown interiors. The scene that stays with me is when Kidman goes to check on her daughter while she plays in her room.
Anne, you need to take the dress off now. Anne, are you listening to me? Anne? What did I tell you about sitting on the floor?
But it's clean.
It makes no difference. Why can't you ever do as you're told?
What's the matter?
Where is my daughter? What have you done with my daughter?
Are you mad? I am your daughter.
You're not my daughter! No! You're not my daughter! No! No! No!
FBI agent in training Clarice Starling is tasked with interviewing psychopath and cannibal Dr. Hannibal Lecter in the hopes of obtaining information on the recent murders perpetrated by the killer, Buffalo Bill. Oh my God, where to start with this masterpiece? Once again, Jodie Foster kills it with an amazing performance that won her Best Actress. It's one of the rare times a horror movie ever won Best Picture, and one of the only Best Pictures I feel continues to hold up and isn't immediately forgotten. Hopkins' portrayal of Hannibal remains iconic. The dangers of female abduction and their struggle for equality in a male-dominated career field still exist, and our cultural fascination with true crime and serial killers is stronger than ever. The cinematography is one of my favorite creative choices in all of film. How Jonathan Demme and Tak Fujimoto emphasize facial close-ups to make us as intimate with these heroes and villains as possible, both gorgeous and terrifying. The scene that stays with me among many is when Clarice finally puts the pieces together and realizes who she's speaking to.
Yeah, I bought this house 2 years ago.
Did she leave any records, any business records, tax forms, lists of employees?
Well, nothing like that at all. Say, has the FBI learned something? The police around here don't seem to have the first clue. I mean, have you got like a description, fingerprints, anything like that?
No. No, we don't.
All right. Here's that number.
Very good, Mr. Gordon. May I use your phone, please?
Sure, you can use my phone.
Freeze! Put your hands over your head and turn around. Spread your legs. Spread your legs. Put your hands in the back. Thumbs up. Freeze!
Followed by one of the most nail-biting scenes ever made.